Hi everyone. I'm just probing to see if anyone would like to support my video making efforts on Patreon. Making videos can get a bit expensive, with needing to purchase not only the subject media itself, but any related media that could be used for research, such as creative influences or books on the subject to fill gaps in my knowledge. If 3 people could donate $5 each, I could get the show on the road. As a reward, I would let patrons vote for the subject of every other book review, and we could discuss other privileges in the future. Leave a comment below or shoot me an email at goingrampant@gmail.com if you're interested or you have a suggestion. Do note that YouTube's internal messaging system is extremely unreliable and cannot be trusted as a means of getting in touch with me or anyone else on YouTube. Thank you for hearing me out and enjoy the video.
And from the thunder I heard them say, the rain wears on, will wash our hands, bring magic to our land. The rain wears on.
Stormfront, by Jim Butcher, published in 2000, is the first entry in the supernatural noir series The Dresden Files, which currently spans 15 novels and numerous short stories. The series follows Harry Dresden, a modern wizard with a PI office in downtown Chicago, facing various supernatural and criminal threats. I'm a real latecomer to The Dresden Files. I heard of the books for a while, but never had much interest in them. When its TV series adaptation came out in 2007, I decided I would check it out. I watched a few of the episodes and then lost interest. A few years later, someone was raving about how good the Dresden Files TV series was, so I got a few DVDs from Netflix. Again, I didn't have much interest in it and didn't finish the season. The books are supposed to be better than the TV show though, so I decided that I would try reading them in the future. But it wasn't very high on my list of priorities, and I soon forgot about it. Then, a few years later, I saw James Marsters at DragonCon talking about doing the Dresden Files audiobooks, and I decided I would get the audiobook just to hear James Marsters. But I didn't get around to it. And then a few years later at another DragonCon, I actually saw Jim Butcher in a panel talking about his 13th Dresden Files book, Ghost Story. It actually sounded interesting, and I thought I might want to check out this Dresden Files series. But I didn't get around to it. Finally, a friend gave me a copy of the Stormfront paperback, and I finally got to check out the Dresden Files book series. It was okay. I mean, I didn't hate it. I've read far worse. It's no 50 Shades of Grey. It's just kind of a standard supernatural noir without much going for it. In the age of supernatural mashup stories like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and Pride and Prejudice with zombies, you would be forgiven for thinking that supernatural detective stories fall into that trend and are a modern invention. You might even think that the Dresden Files is derivative of 1999's Angel, just with a wizard PI instead of a vampire. In actuality, the genre, and it is a genre unto itself, has been around for over 160 years. Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's vampire novella Carmilla, which inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula, was included in an anthology named In a Glass Darkly, about a Dr. Hesselius solving supernatural mysteries. The story of Carmilla was supposed to be a letter that was handed over to the good doctor, and his assistant decided to publish it along with various stories that feature Dr. Hesselius directly. In a Glass Darkly was published in 1872, and it is itself derivative of ghost-hunting detective stories, published in 19th century pulp fiction, thought to begin with The Pot of Tulips by Fitzjames O'Brien, published in Harper's New Monthly Magazine in November of 1855. The supernatural detective story is nothing new. What has to make Stormfront distinctive is its particular mythology and characters. The world of Stormfront contains specific magical societies, creatures, and magic-using humans hiding in plain sight, the depths of which are only hinted at. It's pretty much a standard urban fantasy setting, with a set of specifics exclusive to Stormfront, but it isn't fully explored. Where it has to stand is with its characters, and I don't particularly like any of them. Harry Dresden is a standard male hero in a noir, full of masculine bravado. And because it's a first-person narrative, all of the other characters are seen through his oversimplifying, sexual objectifying, disrespectfully chivalrous interpretations. To an extent, there are effectively no other characters, because all we see is a reflection of Harry Dresden. I don't hate the guy. He's no Thomas Covenant, and he is fundamentally sympathetic, but he doesn't have any attributes to make him particularly likable. He's not cracking wise, at least no more than a standard male hero. He's not delivering biting commentary, he's just a standard male hero. That makes all his sexist crap that much more annoying. I'm told that Harry is supposed to be understood as a flawed character whose sense of chivalrous male heroics is inappropriate for the world that he lives in. That may be more apparent later down the line in other books, but I don't see that in Stormfront. This isn't like Who Censored Roger Rabbit, where commentary on racism through a fantastically racist protagonist is extremely overt. Harry just seems like a standard male detective. His narrative gaze makes up the whole of the book, and there is no way that this is constrained so that we can see him as a single flawed individual. As far as Stormfront is concerned, it feels like the narrative is straightforward in depicting Harry as the hero to be respected. The story starts with Harry getting two cases that I'm sure are completely unrelated and will never intersect at any point. The first is a favor for his police contact, a homicide detective named Murphy. Given that the noir genre is steeped in machismo, I have to give the author some credit for getting with the times and allowing for a female detective, though she's unfortunately viewed through the Harry Dresden lens. Harry puts her on a pedestal just for being a woman, and shows her female-specific courtesies, despite her protests, because Harry's chivalry principles count more than the woman right in front of him telling him to knock it off. Murphy shows him a crime scene in which two people, a sex worker named Jennifer Stanton and a gangster named Tommy Tom, in the midst of having sex, had their hearts ripped out of their bodies. Murphy knows that it's magic, and Harry is the only one she knows who can help. Harry speculates that the crime is the work of a woman, because typically only women harbor that kind of malice and ability to express it so creatively. Hell hath no fury like that of a woman scorned. I'm honestly unsure if that's sexist or not. I once binge-watched the true crime show Deadly Women. There are a lot of female murderers out there, and some of them are very creatively expressive in a way that would typically be unexpected, given the way that women are stereotyped as gentle. But I'm not sure if they would be comparatively worse than male killers. Of course, Harry still makes the comment in a way all wrapped up in noir machismo, so it still feels gross. His other case is a standard missing persons case, or so it appears. A woman using the alias Monica Sells hires him to find her husband Victor, an aspiring wizard who has been missing for 3 days. His search brings him to an empty lake house. He summons and interrogates a fairy witness, who says that the house was the site of an orgy. Harry's use of magic to contain the fairy attracts the attention of Morgan, a thuggish do-gooder working for the magical authority, the White Council. I get the impression that in other circumstances, Morgan would be appreciated as a noble figure of justice, and he only looks like a goon through the dark, gritty Harry Dresden filter. Also, Morgan is especially aggressive to him because of Harry's alluded-to past, where he killed either his girlfriend or his teacher, it's a little hard to tell, out of self-defense. Harry is on a short leash, and Morgan is eager to bring him down. It's somewhat evocative of the Chinese satirical fantasy epic Journey to the West, with the Monkey King as the anti-hero opposing the traditionally appreciated authority figures. The difference there is that the Monkey King is a likable rogue, while Harry Dresden is just dark, gritty jerk man. I can get behind the Monkey King. Harry Dresden just annoys me. Morgan knows about the double homicide and thinks that Harry did it. Harry doesn't help matters by getting into a fistfight with him. Morgan leaves with a warning that when the White Council gets proof of Harry's culpability, he'll be back to kill him. So now Harry is personally invested in solving the case. Harry goes home and introduces us to his wizard lab, his cat, and his annoying roommate Bob, a spirit of air trapped in a skull. Harry uses Bob as a resource on intellectual matters, as Harry's magic aura messes with electronics, and keeps him from just Googling things. Bob is kind of like Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, in that he's a malicious supernatural entity reduced to being a simple domestic presence, and is now a resource of snark. Except that Salem is so likable that you actually kind of want him to take over the world.
Still want to take over the world?
Yes. Wait, no. I meant no. No!
While Bob is just an awful pervert who likes to distribute love potions and create rapey chaos. To hell with Bob. There is a somewhat interesting discussion of gender with regard to Bob, where Bob thinks of himself as male and makes references to having a sense of masculinity. Harry doesn't think that Bob can be male because Bob is physically just a mass of air, like a Star Trek cloud alien, but Bob is still referred to as masculine, with the gendered name, gendered pronouns, and his perversions are imbued with masculine sinfulness. I suspect that the author was afraid that readers wouldn't be able to conceive of a genderless cloud creature as a real character, and so made the character more human with a spiritual masculinity and tying it to a human skull to give readers a human face to picture. This says something about the presumed lack of imagination in readers, as well as illustrating how people without any grounding in queer theory are able to conceive of gender as something that exists beyond physical sex. They just don't have the words to describe it properly. Regardless of Bob's lack of a physical sex, the character has a male gender presentation, and may be considered to have a male gender identity. And Harry's point, while presented as technically accurate, is a bit of a moot point, because as he functions in the narrative, Bob is still understood to be effectively male. Harry wants to be able to get out of a tricky situation quickly, and he decides to make a magic potion to teleport him out of there. He needs Bob to tell him the ingredients, but Bob only agrees on the condition that Harry make a love potion at the same time. Now, love potions are fantasy date rape drugs, inherently abusive tools wielded by rapists. A work becomes problematic if it doesn't treat them with the significance they deserve, and I do not see that here in Stormfront. Bob is kind of an indirect rapist trickster figure equivalent to the Joker. He wants to watch the world burn and get off on it too. He's not a good guy, but he's not outright condemned as an evil monster either. He is treated like Salem, the annoying roommate who is ultimately harmless as long as he's imprisoned. Harry calls him the nicest spirit that he knows. Harry could narrate about how he feels gross brewing a love potion and plans to safely dispose of it as soon as he can, but he doesn't. Harry Dresden is too dark and gritty for that. Harry previously made a date with a sexy reporter woman named Susan Rodriguez, who was essentially trying to seduce him to get juicy intel on the murder case. He actually considers using the potion on Susan as a prank to get her back for insisting that he demonstrate magic to her, intending to have sex with her afterwards when she doesn't have the capacity to say no. But he dismisses this idea because it would reflect badly on his masculine ability to seduce her if he has to cheat with a date rape drug. Oh, and something about it being unfair to take advantage of a woman, listed as a second reason. In the case of something like a love potion, where its rapey nature is consistently downplayed across all media, to the extent that its most popular incarnation is a goofy pop song, whose content about an incompetent rapist taking his own date rape drug and getting into a fight with a homophobic cop, no one really takes the time to comprehend.
I didn't know if it was day or night. I started kissing everything inside, but when I kissed the cop down on 34th and right, he broke my little bottle of love potion number 9.
I think that there is an extra responsibility to make sure readers fully understand that love potions are fantasy date rape drugs and to be condemned. That's not in here.
Now, amortentia doesn't create actual love. That would be impossible. But it does cause a powerful infatuation or obsession. And for that reason, it is probably the most dangerous potion in this room.
There is also some racism with regard to the ingredients of the love potion. Booze is one of the ingredients, because candy is dandy but liquor is quicker. Harry expects to use champagne, and is resistant to Bob's insistence that they use tequila, because he expects that using tequila would produce a sleazier result. This draws from the racist stereotype of Latina women as more sexual than white women.
The rain